The Urban Homesteader's Handbook, Sustainable Living in Small Spaces. Written and published by Ciro Irmici. Feel free to subscribe for more content. Now let's get into the book. Introduction. The Urban Homesteading Revolution. Welcome to the world of urban homesteading. If you're holding this book, there's a good chance you've already dreamt of growing your own tomatoes, harvesting fresh herbs, or maybe even raising a few chickens, all without leaving your cozy city apartment. Sound like a far-fetched idea? Well, that's exactly what this book is here to prove. You don't need acres of land or a rural escape to live sustainably. Even in the heart of the city, you can transform your small space into a thriving urban homestead. In today's fast-paced, concrete jungle lifestyle, the idea of getting back to basics, growing your own food, reducing waste, conserving resources, has never been more appealing. And the good news is you don't need to live on a farm or wear overalls, unless that's your thing, to make it happen. Urban homesteading is all about using what you've got, whether it's a sunny windowsill, a balcony, or even a rooftop garden. With a little creativity, some DIY spirit, and a few helpful tips from this book, you'll soon be turning your small urban space into a productive, eco-friendly homestead. Yes, even if all you have is a fire escape and a couple of flower pots. But urban homesteading is more than just gardening in small spaces. It's about adopting a lifestyle that focuses on sustainability, self-sufficiency, and community. It's about reducing your ecological footprint, learning new skills, and building resilience. Whether it's growing your own food, harvesting rainwater, or finding clever ways to compost in your city apartment. Spoiler alert, worms might be involved. The beauty of urban homesteading is that you can start small and grow at your own pace. No need to go full Little House on the Prairie right away, unless of course you want to. In this book, we'll cover everything from growing vegetables on your balcony to setting up a DIY rainwater harvesting system, with plenty of practical advice along the way. We'll tackle the basics of urban gardening, composting, and even a few fun projects like upcycling household items and reducing waste. And yes, there will be moments where things get a little messy, composting in a tiny apartment. Anyone? But don't worry, we've got plenty of tips, tricks, and a dash of humor to guide you through the process. By the end of this journey, you'll not only have a greener, more sustainable lifestyle but also the satisfaction of knowing you're making a positive impact on the planet, even if your homestead is in the middle of the city. So, grab your gardening gloves, prepare to roll up your sleeves, and let's get started on turning your small urban space into a powerhouse of productivity and sustainability. And remember, if you kill your first plant, that's all part of the learning process. It happens to the best of us. This is just the beginning of your urban homesteading adventure. Whether you're a seasoned city dweller or a complete newbie to the world of gardening and sustainability, this book has something for everyone. Let's dive in, have some fun, and make your city life a little greener, one small step at a time. Chapter 1. Starting Small, The Basics of Urban Homesteading. Urban homesteading. It sounds like a bold, ambitious concept, right? Maybe you're picturing a full-scale farm, complete with rows of crops, a small herd of animals, and someone in a straw hat waving from the porch. But here's the truth. Urban homesteading isn't about moving to the countryside, nor does it require acres of land or complicated farm equipment. In fact, you don't even need a backyard. Urban homesteading is about transforming the space you already have, whether it's a tiny apartment, a city rooftop, or a patch of concrete, into a productive, sustainable living environment. You see, the heart of urban homesteading lies in the mindset. It's about recognizing that no matter where you live or how small your space is, you can make choices that bring you closer to self-sufficiency. It's not about going off-grid or suddenly becoming a master gardener overnight. It's about gradual, intentional steps that integrate sustainability into your urban lifestyle. And the best part? You don't need to uproot your life to make it happen. Urban homesteading is as adaptable as it is rewarding, which means you can tailor it to fit your lifestyle, goals, and available space. So where do you start? Well, here's a little secret. You don't need to do everything at once. Urban homesteading isn't a race, and it certainly isn't about perfection. The key is to start small and build from there. Whether it's growing herbs in your kitchen, setting up a tiny compost bin under your sink, or getting into the habit of recycling more efficiently, the first step is simply making the decision to live more sustainably. And let's be honest, starting small has its perks. There's less pressure, fewer overwhelming changes, and plenty of room to experiment, and yes, sometimes fail, without worrying about upending your entire life. Take gardening, for example. You don't need a sprawling backyard or a dozen raised beds to grow your own food. Urban gardening is about working with what you've got. If you've got a balcony, that's fantastic. You can transform it into a mini garden oasis with containers of tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. If you're working with less outdoor space, a few pots on a windowsill can do wonders. Even something as small as growing basil in a mason jar on your kitchen counter counts as urban homesteading. The goal isn't to produce all of your food right away, though hey, if you're up for the challenge, go for it. It's to reconnect with the process of growing, to understand where your food comes from, and to enjoy the satisfaction that comes with nurturing something from seed to harvest. Composting is another great way to dip your toes into the urban homesteading pool. Now, I know what you're thinking, composting in the city? Isn't that a little messy? But hear me out. Composting doesn't have to be an epic ordeal, nor does it require a huge backyard. There are plenty of small-scale composting solutions designed specifically for urban spaces. Vermicomposting, for instance, is a perfect fit for city dwellers. All you need is a small container, some worms, don't worry, they're friendly little guys, and a steady stream of kitchen scraps. Before you know it, you'll be turning your food waste into nutrient-rich compost for your plants, all without a hint of unpleasant odor. Plus, there's something oddly satisfying about feeding your leftovers to a bunch of wriggly worms and watching them transform it into garden gold. It's the circle of life, just in a more compact, urban-friendly version. Of course, urban homesteading isn't just about growing food or composting. It's also about reducing waste, conserving resources, and finding creative ways to live more sustainably in an urban environment. This might mean rethinking how you use water in your home or experimenting with rainwater harvesting. Even something as simple as fixing a leaky faucet or switching to a low-flow showerhead can make a big impact over time. The beauty of urban homesteading is that it encourages us to become more mindful of how we interact with our environment, even in the seemingly small, everyday choices we make. And here's where things get exciting. As you start to adopt some of these changes, you'll notice a shift in how you approach your life in the city. That basil plant on your windowsill? It'll remind you that food doesn't have to come from a grocery store. The compost bin under your sink? It'll change the way you view your kitchen scraps, not as waste but as a valuable resource. The rainwater you collect in a barrel on your balcony? It'll give you a deeper appreciation for the water we so often take for granted. Each small step you take not only brings you closer to sustainability, but it also changes the way you see the world around you. It's important to remember that urban homesteading is a journey, not a destination. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, no perfect formula. Every urban homestead will look different because every space is different. The key is to embrace the process, to stay curious, and to be open to learning along the way. Some projects will work out beautifully, while others might flop. Looking at you, dead tomato plant from last year. But that's all part of the fun. Urban homesteading is about experimentation, creativity, and finding what works best for your unique situation. At its core, urban homesteading is an empowering way to live. It's about reclaiming some control over the food we eat, the resources we use, and the waste we produce. It's about reconnecting with the natural world, even when that world is surrounded by skyscrapers and busy streets. And it's about building resilience, not just for ourselves but for our communities and the planet. So, as you begin your urban homesteading journey, remember, start small, stay curious, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, figuratively and literally. Whether you're planting your first seed or setting up a compost bin, each step brings you closer to a more sustainable, fulfilling way of life. And who knows? You might just find that your little urban homestead becomes a sanctuary in the heart of the city, a place where you can slow down, reconnect, and create something truly meaningful. After all, that's what urban homesteading is really all about, finding sustainability, peace, and purpose in the most unexpected places. Chapter 2. Maximizing Space, Vertical and Container Gardening. Living in a city often means accepting the reality of limited space. Whether you're in an apartment, a townhouse, or a small home with minimal outdoor access, one of the first hurdles you'll face as an urban homesteader is figuring out how to grow your own food in what feels like a tiny patch of the world. But here's the good news. space isn't the enemy. In fact, it's often the greatest motivator for creativity. That's where vertical and container gardening come in, the two best friends you never knew you needed for turning your urban space into a thriving green sanctuary. When people think of gardens, they tend to imagine sprawling plots of land filled with neat rows of crops or lush raised beds brimming with vegetables. It's easy to assume that without a yard, gardening simply isn't an option. But vertical and container gardening challenge that idea entirely. They don't just work around space limitations, they embrace them. These methods allow you to grow a surprising amount of food in even the smallest areas, turning bare walls, balconies, and windowsills into productive gardening real estate. Vertical gardening is all about rethinking the traditional concept of a garden. Instead of planting in the ground, you build up. It's as simple as that. Whether it's attaching pots to a sunny wall, using hanging baskets, or stacking planters, vertical gardening transforms vertical space into a functional growing environment. Imagine looking at that blank wall on your balcony and suddenly seeing it covered in lush, cascading greenery, herbs, strawberries, tomatoes, all reaching toward the sunlight. It's not just beautiful, it's incredibly efficient. One of the greatest advantages of vertical gardening is that it maximizes your space without sacrificing plant growth. Plants like cucumbers, beans, peas, and even certain squash varieties naturally grow upward, so why not give them the support they need to stretch toward the sky? Even if you don't have a lot of horizontal space, you can create your very own vertical oasis. Trellises, shelves, and even old ladders can be repurposed into garden structures that allow your plants to thrive without spreading out and taking up valuable floor space. Then there's container gardening, the unsung hero of urban homesteading. If you have a balcony, rooftop, or even just a sunny windowsill, you can start a container garden. Containers offer flexibility like nothing else. They allow you to grow plants in small, manageable environments, and the best part is, you can move them around as needed. If the sun shifts throughout the day, simply relocate your pots to follow the light. If a plant needs more shade, you can find a cooler corner. It's like giving your plants the perfect environment on demand. With container gardening, there's no need to invest in fancy pots either. In true urban homesteader fashion, you can repurpose almost anything into a container. Old buckets, crates, and even large coffee cans can be transformed into planters with a little creativity and a few drainage holes. Don't be afraid to get resourceful. After all, urban homesteading is about sustainability and making the most of what you have. Plus, there's something incredibly satisfying about growing a thriving tomato plant in an old milk jug. It's the perfect blend of eco-consciousness and practicality. Now, before you dive headfirst into your vertical and container garden, it's important to understand a few key principles. First, not all plants are created equal when it comes to container life. Some plants have deep roots and need larger pots, while others are perfectly happy in a shallow container. For example, herbs like basil, parsley, and thyme are perfect for small pots on a windowsill, while tomatoes and peppers may need deeper containers to accommodate their root systems. The beauty of container gardening is that it gives you the freedom to experiment and find what works best in your space. Watering is another factor to consider. Containers dry out more quickly than traditional garden beds, especially in warmer weather. This means you'll need to keep a closer eye on your plants and water them more frequently. The good news is it's easy to set up a drip irrigation system or simply give your pots a quick soak with a watering can. Remember, the goal here is to create a thriving garden that works for you, not the other way around. With a little attention and care, your plants will reward you with fresh produce and vibrant growth. Lighting is another challenge that many urban gardeners face, especially in densely populated areas where buildings can block natural sunlight. But this is where the adaptability of container and vertical gardening truly shines. By using portable containers or installing vertical gardens on different parts of your balcony, rooftop, or windowsill, you can adjust your garden's placement to follow the sun. If your space is more shaded than you'd like, don't despair, there are plenty of plants that thrive in low light. Leafy greens like spinach, arugula, and lettuce are all great choices for shadier spots. One of the best parts of vertical and container gardening is that it makes gardening accessible to everyone. Whether you're working with a small studio apartment or a rooftop garden with a view, you can grow something meaningful and productive. There's a certain joy that comes from watching plants grow in the most unexpected places. Tiny pots, hanging baskets, or a once bare wall suddenly bursting with life. And when you harvest your first handful of herbs or bite into a homegrown tomato, you'll realize that your little urban garden is more than just a hobby. It's a way to reclaim a sense of control and connection to the natural world, even in the heart of the city. But beyond the practical benefits of growing your own food, there's something deeply therapeutic about gardening, especially in an urban environment. Cities can be loud, chaotic, and overwhelming, but a garden offers a quiet refuge. A space where you can slow down, nurture something from seed to harvest, and reconnect with nature. It's a reminder that even in the middle of a bustling city, life can grow, flourish, and thrive. As you get started with your vertical and container garden, don't be afraid to experiment. Try different plants, play around with various container setups, and embrace the learning process. You might have a few mishaps along the way, overwatered herbs, but that's all part of the fun. Urban homesteading is about progress, not perfection. With every seed you plant, you're taking a step closer to a more sustainable, self-sufficient lifestyle, and that's something to be proud of. Ultimately, vertical and container gardening offer the freedom to grow your own food, no matter how small your space. They allow you to reclaim a bit of nature, right there in your city apartment or on your balcony. And while your garden may start small, don't be surprised if it grows into something far bigger than you imagined. Not just in size, but in the sense of fulfillment and purpose it brings to your urban homesteading journey. Chapter 3: Soil Matters, Urban Composting and Soil Improvement. When you think of a thriving garden, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Most people picture the vibrant greenery, flourishing plants, or the satisfying bounty of homegrown vegetables. But the true heart of any successful garden, especially an urban one, lies beneath the surface, in the soil. Without healthy, nutrient-rich soil, even the best gardening efforts can wither away before they've truly begun. And in an urban environment where concrete and asphalt rule the landscape, quality soil can feel like a rare and precious commodity. But fear not, because with the magic of composting, even city dwellers can create the rich, fertile soil needed to grow a successful garden, no matter how small. Soil isn't just dirt. It's a living, breathing ecosystem filled with microorganisms, nutrients, and organic matter that support plant growth. In a perfect world, every gardener would have access to deep, nutrient-dense soil right in their backyard. But urban gardeners often face a very different reality. Whether you're working with a rooftop garden, containers on a balcony, or raised beds in a community plot, the quality of your soil can vary wildly. Sometimes it feels like you're working with little more than dust and pebbles, far from the rich, dark earth you'd expect to find in a traditional garden. That's where composting comes in to save the day. Composting is the process of recycling organic waste, things like fruit peels, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and even shredded paper, into nutrient-rich material that can be used to improve soil health. It's nature's way of closing the loop, turning waste into something that can support new growth. For urban homesteaders, composting is a game changer. Not only does it reduce waste, but it also transforms what would have been garbage into valuable black gold for your garden. With compost, even the most tired, lifeless soil can be rejuvenated, giving your plants the foundation they need to thrive. Now, I can already hear your skepticism. Composting in the city? Where space is tight and neighbors are close. Won't it be messy, smelly, and difficult to manage? It's a common concern, but here's the truth. Composting is entirely possible, and even enjoyable, in urban environments as long as it's done right. With the right approach, you can compost effectively in small spaces without creating a nuisance or attracting unwanted pests. Let's start with the basics. Composting relies on a balance of green and brown materials. Greens are things like vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and fresh grass clippings, which are rich in nitrogen. Browns are dry leaves, shredded paper, and cardboard, which provide carbon. When mixed together in the right proportions, these materials break down naturally into compost. The key to successful composting in a small space is to manage this process in a way that minimizes odor and speeds up decomposition. For many urban gardeners, vermicomposting is the perfect solution. Vermicomposting uses worms, yes, worms, to break down organic matter more quickly than traditional composting methods. These hard-working little creatures, usually red wigglers, happily devour your kitchen scraps, transforming them into nutrient-dense compost in a matter of weeks. And the best part? Vermicomposting can be done indoors in a small bin that fits neatly under your sink or in a corner of your kitchen. The worms take care of everything, quietly and without any unpleasant smells, leaving you with rich, earthy compost that's perfect for your plants. It's like having your very own team of underground farmers, quietly turning food scraps into garden gold. For those who prefer a more traditional composting method, even a small outdoor space like a balcony or rooftop can be enough to set up a compact compost bin. Many urban gardeners opt for tumbling composters, small, enclosed units that keep the process contained and easy to manage. These bins can be rotated to aerate the compost, speeding up the decomposition process and preventing odors from building up. It's composting made simple and city-friendly, without the need for a sprawling backyard. The beauty of composting in the city is that it transforms waste into a resource. Instead of throwing out food scraps and sending them to a landfill, where they would contribute to methane emissions, you're putting that organic matter to work. Every banana peel, coffee filter, and wilted lettuce leaf becomes part of a cycle that supports new life. And as your compost pile grows, so does your garden's ability to thrive. But compost is only part of the soil improvement story. Once you've created your nutrient-rich compost, the next step is to integrate it into your soil to ensure your plants have the best possible environment to grow. In urban settings where the soil may be compacted, lacking in nutrients, or even contaminated, improving soil health is essential. Whether you're growing in containers, raised beds, or a small patch of land, incorporating compost into your soil mix can make all the difference. Healthy soil is all about structure. It needs to be loose enough to allow water to drain but also retain enough moisture for plants to access what they need. It also needs to be full of organic matter. Think decomposed leaves, compost, and other plant material that provides nutrients and feeds the living organisms in the soil. Compost helps create this balance, improving soil structure and providing a slow release of nutrients that keep your plants happy over time. If you're working with containers, improving your soil is even easier. Containers give you full control over the growing environment, which means you can mix in compost, organic fertilizers, and other amendments to create the perfect growing medium. A mix of compost, coconut coir or peat moss, and a little bit of perlite or vermiculite can give your plants the loose, well-draining soil they need, while also ensuring that they have access to plenty of nutrients. And because containers can dry out more quickly than traditional garden beds, the addition of compost helps retain moisture, keeping your plants hydrated and healthy. For those lucky enough to have access to a small patch of land, improving the soil may take a bit more time, but it's well worth the effort. Urban soils are often compacted or disturbed by construction, making it difficult for plants to take root. By incorporating compost, aerating the soil, and avoiding synthetic fertilizers that can harm soil life, you'll be creating a thriving, living environment that supports healthy plant growth. Over time, you'll notice that your plants grow stronger, your yields increase, and your garden becomes more resilient to drought and other stresses. As you embark on your composting and soil improvement journey, remember that this process is as much about observation as it is about action. The beauty of gardening is that it teaches us to pay attention to the subtle changes in our soil, to the needs of our plants, and to the cycles of growth and decay that keep life going. Composting brings us closer to these cycles, reminding us that nothing is truly wasted in nature. What we once saw as garbage becomes the foundation for new growth, enriching our gardens and our lives. In an urban environment where concrete dominates and green spaces can feel scarce, the act of composting and improving soil takes on a special significance. It's a way of reclaiming the natural world, even in the midst of skyscrapers and traffic. It's a reminder that we too are part of the Earth's cycles, and that with a little effort, we can restore balance, even in the smallest corners of our cities. So, as you begin composting and tending to your soil, know that you're not just growing a garden. You're participating in something much larger. A process that connects you to the earth, to your community, and to the simple yet profound idea that with care and intention, we can all cultivate life, even in the most unlikely of places. Soil, after all, is the foundation of everything. And with compost and a little patience, you can build that foundation wherever you are. Chapter 4. Water Wisdom, Harvesting and Conserving Water in the City. Water. It's one of the most essential elements of life, and when it comes to urban homesteading, water is often at the center of everything. Whether you're growing a tiny herb garden on your windowsill or managing a rooftop vegetable patch, water is what keeps your plants thriving, your compost breaking down, and your small oasis of green alive. But here's the catch. In urban areas, water isn't always as abundant or as cheap as it seems. The convenience of turning on the tap masks a bigger reality. Water is a precious resource, and using it wisely is key to creating a sustainable homestead in the city. When you live in a city, water often comes from a central supply, one that you may not think twice about until your utility bill arrives or a drought alert hits the headlines. The irony of urban living is that while the city buzzes with human activity, natural resources like water can feel disconnected from everyday life. But as an urban homesteader, your goal is to bridge that gap, to recognize water as the valuable, finite resource it is, and to find creative ways to conserve, recycle, and make the most of every drop. This chapter will explore how you can shift your approach to water in your urban homestead, from capturing rainwater to using every last trickle efficiently. Let's start with the most natural and perhaps most overlooked source of water in urban environments: rain. Cities may not seem like ideal places for water harvesting with their endless rows of buildings, paved streets, and lack of open land, but rain falls on the city just as it does in the countryside. And while much of that rainwater ends up funneled away through drains and into stormwater systems, as an urban homesteader, you can tap into this free resource. Rainwater harvesting is a practice as old as agriculture itself, and it's just as relevant today, especially in urban areas where water can be scarce or expensive. Rainwater harvesting isn't just about saving water. It's about reclaiming a resource that would otherwise be wasted. When rain falls on your rooftop, your balcony, or even your small garden plot, it has the potential to be captured and stored for later use. With the right system, even a brief rainstorm can provide enough water to keep your plants hydrated for days or weeks, reducing your reliance on city water and making your homestead more self-sufficient. The best part? Harvesting rainwater is simpler than it sounds. At its core, rainwater harvesting involves collecting rain that falls on a surface, usually a rooftop, and directing it into a storage container like a rain barrel. From there, the water can be used for irrigation, washing, or even household tasks like cleaning. The setup doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it can be as simple as placing a large barrel beneath a downspout and letting nature do the rest. Every time it rains, your barrel fills up, providing you with a free, sustainable source of water for your garden. But the real beauty of rainwater harvesting is that it teaches us to pay attention to our environment. You start to notice the patterns of rain in your area, to think about the best ways to capture and store water, and to appreciate the value of every storm that passes overhead. Even if you live in an area with frequent rain, harvesting water brings a new awareness of the cycles of nature, reminding you that water is a gift, not a given. Of course, not every city dweller has a large rooftop or space for multiple rain barrels, and that's where creativity comes into play. Urban homesteading is all about making the most of the space you have, so if your setup is more modest, you can still harvest rainwater on a smaller scale. Even a balcony or patio can become a water collection zone with the right approach. Small, portable rain barrels or water collection systems designed for urban spaces can fit into tight corners or beneath a narrow overhang. The key is to think vertically, just like with your garden, and to use every available surface to capture water. Once you've harvested your rainwater, the next challenge is making sure you use it wisely. Water conservation becomes a central practice in urban homesteading, especially in environments where water may be limited or subject to restrictions. But here's the thing: conserving water doesn't mean sacrificing the health of your garden or giving up the comforts of modern living. In fact, water conservation is often about learning to work smarter, not harder, when it comes to how you water your plants and manage your home's water needs. One of the simplest ways to conserve water is to think carefully about when and how you water your plants. In an urban garden, especially one filled with containers, water can evaporate quickly, leaving your plants thirsty. But watering during the hottest part of the day isn't always the best solution. By watering early in the morning or later in the evening, when the sun is less intense, you can reduce evaporation and ensure that more water actually reaches your plant's roots. This small adjustment in your routine can make a big difference over time, helping you stretch your water supply further while keeping your garden green and thriving. Another technique that urban homesteaders can embrace is mulching. Mulch is a layer of organic material, like straw, leaves, or even compost, that you spread over the surface of your soil. It acts like a protective blanket, keeping moisture in the soil where it belongs and preventing it from evaporating too quickly. Mulching is especially useful in container gardens, where soil tends to dry out faster than in traditional garden beds. By adding a layer of mulch around your plants, you not only conserve water but also improve soil health over time, as the mulch breaks down and adds nutrients to the soil. Then there's the idea of reusing water, something that often gets overlooked in the convenience of modern life. But as an urban homesteader, part of your mission is to reduce waste in all its forms, and water is no exception. One way to reuse water is through something called gray water recycling. Gray water is the relatively clean wastewater that comes from sources like your shower, bathroom sink, or washing machine. While it's not suitable for drinking, gray water can be safely used to water your garden, as long as you use plant-friendly soaps and cleaning products. With a few adjustments to your plumbing or by manually collecting gray water in buckets, you can give this water a second life in your urban garden, reducing your overall water usage and cutting down on waste. The idea of reusing water goes hand in hand with rethinking how we use water in general. For urban homesteaders, every drop counts, and by adopting a mindset of mindfulness around water, you begin to see opportunities for conservation in unexpected places. Maybe it's installing a low-flow showerhead to cut down on water waste or fixing that leaky faucet that's been dripping for weeks. Or perhaps it's as simple as turning off the tap while brushing your teeth or washing dishes in a basin to capture the rinse water for your plants. These small actions add up, creating a lifestyle that's not only more sustainable but also more in tune with the rhythms of the natural world. At the end of the day, water conservation and harvesting are about more than just saving money on your utility bills or checking off an eco-friendly box. They're about fostering a deeper connection with the resources that sustain us. When you begin to see water as something precious, not just something that flows endlessly from a tap, your relationship with the world around you starts to shift. You begin to appreciate the rain as a blessing, to value every drop of water that sustains your garden, and to take pride in knowing that you're doing your part to live more sustainably, even in the heart of the city. In many ways, water is the lifeblood of urban homesteading. It nourishes your plants, fuels your compost, and supports the small ecosystems you're building in your home or garden. By learning to harvest, conserve, and use water wisely, you're not just creating a more sustainable urban homestead, you're creating a more thoughtful, intentional way of living, one that honors the natural resources we all rely on. And in a world where water is increasingly at risk, that kind of mindful stewardship is perhaps one of the most important things you can cultivate, not just as a gardener but as a human being. Chapter 5. Urban Food Production, Growing Vegetables, Herbs, and Fruits. There's something undeniably special about growing your own food. It's more than just a hobby or a way to save a few bucks at the grocery store. There's a deep satisfaction that comes from watching a tiny seed sprout into something vibrant, something that you've nurtured with your own hands, and something you can eventually harvest and enjoy. For many urban homesteaders, the desire to produce their own food is one of the main reasons they get started on this journey. The idea of growing fresh vegetables, herbs, and even fruits right in the middle of a bustling city feels like a small rebellion against the fast-paced, convenience-driven world we live in. And perhaps more importantly, it's a way to reconnect with the land, even if that land is just a few pots on a windowsill or a small patch of soil on a rooftop. Urban food production can seem like a daunting task, especially when space is limited. After all, when you think of growing vegetables and fruits, it's easy to imagine wide open fields, sprawling orchards, and endless rows of crops. But the beauty of urban homesteading lies in its adaptability. You don't need a sprawling backyard or acres of land to grow your own food. With a little creativity, some thoughtful planning, and the right mindset, you can turn even the smallest urban spaces into productive, food-growing environments. At its core, urban food production is about maximizing the space you have and choosing crops that work well within your specific environment. Whether you're working with a balcony, a rooftop, a small backyard, or even just a few containers on your apartment's fire escape, there's always a way to grow something. The key is to embrace the space constraints and work with them, rather than against them. Urban homesteading teaches us that you don't need vast tracts of land to cultivate a garden. You just need to be resourceful with the space you have. For many urban gardeners, the first step into food production starts with herbs. Herbs are incredibly versatile, easy to grow, and don't require much space, making them ideal for urban settings. Whether you've got a sunny windowsill, a balcony, or a small patio, you can create a thriving herb garden that not only adds flavor to your meals but also fills your home with fresh, fragrant greenery. Basil, mint, thyme, rosemary, these are just a few of the many herbs that thrive in small containers and can be grown year-round in many urban environments. There's something magical about plucking a few leaves of fresh basil for your pasta or snipping some mint to make a refreshing tea. These simple pleasures are what urban homesteading is all about, finding joy in the small, everyday moments of self-sufficiency. But while herbs are a great starting point, many urban homesteaders soon find themselves wanting to expand their gardens to include vegetables and even fruits. And why not? Growing your own vegetables is one of the most rewarding aspects of urban food production. It allows you to take control over the food you eat, ensuring that it's fresh, organic, and free from harmful chemicals. Plus, there's an immense sense of pride that comes from watching a tomato plant flourish or harvesting your first batch of leafy greens. One of the key principles of urban food production is understanding the concept of right plant, right place. Not all crops are suited to small urban spaces, so it's important to choose plants that can thrive in the environment you have. Leafy greens like spinach, lettuce, and kale are fantastic choices for container gardens, as they don't require deep root systems and can grow quickly in small spaces. Tomatoes, peppers, and beans can also do well in containers or small garden beds, provided they get enough sunlight and have proper support structures in place. Many of these crops are perfect for urban environments because they can be grown vertically, using trellises or supports to make the most of limited space. For those lucky enough to have a rooftop or a small backyard, raised beds are an excellent way to grow a variety of vegetables and fruits in an organized, efficient manner. Raised beds allow you to control the quality of the soil, ensure proper drainage, and create an environment where your plants can thrive, even in the heart of the city. Raised beds also offer a level of flexibility, allowing you to experiment with different crops and planting techniques without having to worry about the constraints of urban soil, which can often be compacted, nutrient-poor, or even contaminated. One of the most exciting aspects of urban food production is the possibility of growing fruits. While it might seem impossible to grow fruit in the city, the truth is that many fruiting plants can adapt to urban environments, especially if you're willing to think outside the box. For example, dwarf fruit trees are specifically bred for small spaces and can be grown in large pots on a balcony or patio. Apples, peaches, lemons, and figs are just a few examples of fruit trees that can thrive in containers, providing you with fresh fruit year after year. Berry bushes, like raspberries and blackberries, are another great option for urban gardeners, as they can be trained to grow along fences or trellises, making them perfect for tight spaces. Of course, like any type of gardening, urban food production comes with its own set of challenges. Limited space means you have to be strategic about plant placement, and managing sunlight, water, and soil quality becomes even more important in a small-scale garden. But here's the good news. Urban homesteading encourages us to be resourceful and resilient. Instead of seeing space as a limitation, think of it as an opportunity to get creative. Use vertical gardening techniques to grow crops upward instead of outward. Place containers on balconies, rooftops, or windowsills to take advantage of every available inch of sunlight. And don't be afraid to experiment with different planting methods until you find what works best for your space. Water management is another key factor in urban food production. Since urban gardens are often grown in containers or raised beds, they can dry out more quickly than traditional in-ground gardens. This means you'll need to be mindful of how and when you water your plants. Installing a simple drip irrigation system or using self-watering containers can help ensure that your plants get the hydration they need without wasting water. Mulching is another great technique for conserving moisture, as it helps to keep the soil cool and prevents evaporation, which is especially important in hot urban environments where concrete and asphalt can intensify the heat. But beyond the practicalities of growing food in the city, there's something deeply fulfilling about the entire process. Urban food production gives you a front-row seat to the magic of nature, even in the midst of a concrete jungle. It teaches patience, resilience, and the importance of nurturing something from start to finish. There's a sense of accomplishment that comes with every sprout, every new leaf, every ripened tomato hanging heavy on the vine. It's a reminder that even in the heart of a bustling city, life can grow, thrive, and flourish. For many urban homesteaders, the journey toward food production becomes more than just a way to feed themselves. It becomes a way of life. The process of growing your own food fosters a deeper connection to the environment and a greater awareness of the natural world. It encourages you to think about where your food comes from, how it's grown, and the impact your choices have on the planet. It also instills a sense of independence, as you realize that you don't have to rely solely on supermarkets and industrial food systems for your sustenance. You have the power to grow your own food even in the city, and that's an incredibly empowering realization. Ultimately, urban food production is about more than just gardening. It's about reclaiming a sense of agency over what we eat and how we live. It's about finding joy in the process of planting, nurturing, and harvesting, even in the smallest spaces. And it's about knowing that with a little effort, patience, and creativity, we can all grow something meaningful, even in the middle of the city. So whether you're harvesting a handful of fresh herbs from your windowsill or plucking a ripe tomato from your balcony garden, know that you're part of a growing movement. A movement toward sustainability, self-sufficiency, and a deeper connection to the natural world. Chapter 6. Raising Urban Livestock, Chickens, Bees, and Beyond. At first glance, the idea of raising livestock in an urban environment might seem, well, a little outlandish. After all, when most people think of livestock, they picture sprawling farms, rolling hills, and barns filled with animals, places far removed from the concrete and steel of city life. But here's the surprising truth. Urban homesteaders all over the world are proving that raising animals, even in small spaces, is not only possible but incredibly rewarding. Chickens clucking contentedly in backyard coops, bees buzzing on city rooftops, and even a few rabbits munching on garden greens, urban livestock are becoming an integral part of city homesteads. Raising animals in the city isn't just about fresh eggs or honey, though those are pretty wonderful perks. It's about embracing a more holistic, self-sufficient lifestyle. When you introduce livestock into your urban homestead, you're not just adding a source of food, you're creating a miniature ecosystem, one where every element, from the animals to the plants to the compost, works together in harmony. It's an exercise in balance, resourcefulness, and yes, a little bit of creativity. After all, not everyone has space for a barn, but as many urban homesteaders have discovered, you don't need acres of land to successfully raise a few animals. For many city dwellers, chickens are the gateway to urban livestock. There's something quintessentially homestead-like about having a small flock of hens in the backyard, scratching in the dirt and laying fresh eggs each morning. Chickens are surprisingly well-suited to urban environments. They're small, relatively low maintenance, and unlike some larger farm animals, they don't require a ton of space to thrive. As long as you have a secure, well-ventilated coop and a small outdoor area where they can roam, chickens can fit into even modest-sized backyards. And the rewards? Fresh eggs, of course, but also a deeper connection to the rhythms of nature. There's a certain magic to raising chickens in the city. Waking up to the soft clucking of hens and gathering eggs straight from the coop is a simple pleasure, but it's one that connects you to a long tradition of sustainable living. Chickens aren't just egg producers. They're also wonderful contributors to the overall health of your urban homestead. They eat kitchen scraps, help control pests, and their droppings make fantastic fertilizer for your garden. In a way, they complete the urban homesteading cycle, turning waste into resources and providing you with a steady supply of fresh food. It's a beautifully symbiotic relationship, and one that adds a sense of self-reliance to city life. But raising chickens isn't without its challenges, especially in an urban environment. Before you dive into chicken keeping, it's important to check local regulations. Many cities have ordinances that govern whether or not you can keep chickens, how many you can have, and what kind of setup is required. Some areas may have restrictions on roosters due to noise, while others may limit the number of hens based on space. These rules are in place to ensure that chickens don't become a nuisance to neighbors and that they're kept in safe, humane conditions. Once you've navigated the legal landscape, though, you'll find that keeping chickens can be an incredibly rewarding addition to your urban homestead. And then there's the bees. Yes, bees. It might seem hard to believe that something as wild and untamed as beekeeping could find a home in the heart of the city, but urban beekeepers are proving that even in the most densely populated areas, bees can thrive. In fact, cities can be surprisingly hospitable environments for bees. Urban areas often have a wide variety of flowering plants. Think rooftop gardens, parks, community plots, and even window boxes, giving bees access to a diverse and continuous food source. And in a world where bee populations are declining at an alarming rate, supporting these vital pollinators in the city is more important than ever. Beekeeping in the city is more than just a quirky hobby, it's a profound act of environmental stewardship. Bees play a crucial role in pollinating plants, including many of the fruits and vegetables we rely on for food. By raising bees in your urban homestead, you're not only producing delicious, hyperlocal honey, but you're also contributing to the health of the urban ecosystem. Your bees will pollinate the flowers and gardens in your neighborhood, helping plants to thrive and creating a ripple effect that benefits the entire local environment. It's a powerful reminder that even in the city, we're part of something much larger and that the choices we make, like raising bees, can have a lasting impact on the world around us. Of course, like any form of urban livestock, beekeeping comes with its own set of considerations. Bees require a bit more attention than chickens, and while they don't take up much space, they do require specific equipment, such as hives, protective clothing, and tools for harvesting honey. It's also important to check local ordinances regarding beekeeping, as some cities have regulations about where hives can be placed and how many you can keep. That said, urban beekeeping is becoming increasingly popular, and there are many resources available to help new beekeepers get started, from local beekeeping clubs to online communities. If you're up for the challenge, raising bees can be one of the most rewarding and delicious additions to your urban homestead. Beyond chickens and bees, urban homesteaders are getting creative with other forms of small-scale livestock. Rabbits, for example, are becoming an increasingly popular choice for urban homesteads. They're quiet, don't require much space, and can provide both meat and high-quality manure for gardens. Rabbit droppings are an excellent fertilizer, rich in nutrients, and they can be applied directly to your plants without needing to be composted first. For those who are interested in raising animals for meat but don't have the space for larger livestock, rabbits offer a practical and humane solution. Quail are another option for urban homesteaders looking to raise poultry but with even less space than chickens require. These small birds are easy to care for, and like chickens, they provide a steady supply of eggs. Quail eggs are smaller than chicken eggs, but they're packed with flavor and nutrients. And because quail are so compact, they can be raised in relatively small spaces, making them a great option for city dwellers with limited outdoor areas. At the end of the day, raising urban livestock is about more than just food production. It's about creating a deeper connection to the natural world, even in the middle of the city. It's about understanding the cycles of life and death, growth and decay, and how every element of your homestead, from the plants to the animals to the compost, works together in harmony. There's a certain joy that comes from tending to animals, from watching them grow and thrive under your care. And while raising livestock in the city comes with its own unique set of challenges, it's also incredibly rewarding. For many urban homesteaders, the decision to raise livestock represents a commitment to a more sustainable, self-sufficient way of life. It's a decision to take control over where your food comes from, to reduce your reliance on industrial food systems, and to embrace a lifestyle that's more in tune with nature. But it's also about something deeper, something more personal. There's a sense of responsibility that comes with raising animals, a sense of stewardship that reminds us of our role in the larger ecosystem. In caring for chickens, bees, rabbits, or quail, we're not just feeding ourselves, we're contributing to the health and vitality of our urban environment. In the end, raising livestock in the city is about balance. It's about finding a way to live sustainably in a world that often feels disconnected from the natural world. And it's about discovering that even in the most unlikely places, life can flourish. Whether you're collecting eggs from your hens, harvesting honey from your bees, or simply enjoying the quiet presence of rabbits in your garden, raising urban livestock is a way of bringing nature back into the city, one small, meaningful step at a time. Chapter 7. DIY Renewable Energy Solutions for the Urban Homestead. When most people think of renewable energy, their minds often drift to the image of vast solar farms stretching across open deserts or towering wind turbines dotting rural landscapes. It's easy to assume that renewable energy is something only accessible to those with a lot of land or resources, far removed from the realities of city living. But urban homesteaders know better. Renewable energy isn't just for the countryside, it's for anyone anywhere who wants to reduce their environmental footprint, lower their utility bills, and take one more step towards self-sufficiency. Even in the heart of a bustling city, there are ways to harness the power of the sun, the wind, and even the energy you generate within your own home. At its core, urban homesteading is about finding creative, practical solutions to the challenges of living sustainably in small spaces. Renewable energy is no exception. While you might not have the space for a full solar array or a backyard wind turbine, there are still plenty of ways to integrate renewable energy into your urban homestead. In fact, the beauty of living in a city is that it often forces you to think outside the box, to innovate in ways that people with more space might never consider. Urban homesteaders are masters of making the most of what they have, and when it comes to renewable energy, even the smallest efforts can have a big impact. Let's start with one of the most accessible forms of renewable energy, solar power. The sun, after all, shines just as brightly on the city as it does in the countryside. While installing large solar panels on your roof might not be an option for everyone, smaller solar solutions can be a game changer for urban homesteaders. Solar energy is particularly attractive because it's clean, renewable, and requires little maintenance once installed. And thanks to advancements in technology, solar panels have become more efficient, more affordable, and better suited to urban environments. For city dwellers, even a small-scale solar system can make a significant difference in your energy use. Portable solar panels, for instance, are a fantastic option for those who want to dip their toes into renewable energy without making a huge investment. These compact systems can be placed on balconies, windowsills, or rooftops and used to charge devices, power small appliances, or even run lights in your garden. It's a simple but effective way to reduce your reliance on the grid while making use of the abundant sunlight that streams through your city windows. Another exciting option for urban homesteaders is the installation of solar water heaters. These systems use the sun's energy to heat water, reducing your need for traditional water heaters that rely on electricity or gas. Even in a small urban home, a solar water heater can provide a significant amount of hot water for showers, dishwashing, and laundry. The concept is beautifully simple. A series of solar panels capture the sun's energy, which is then transferred to a storage tank where the water is heated. It's a low-cost, low-maintenance solution that can pay for itself over time, especially in sunny climates where traditional water heating can be one of the largest contributors to your energy bill. And then there's the idea of solar lighting. For those with outdoor spaces, whether it's a small garden, a rooftop, or a balcony, solar-powered lights can be a simple yet effective way to introduce renewable energy into your homestead. Solar lights work by storing energy from the sun during the day and then using that energy to illuminate your space at night. They're perfect for creating a cozy, inviting atmosphere in your outdoor areas without using any electricity. Plus, many modern solar lights are designed to be both stylish and functional, adding a touch of charm to your urban homestead while also cutting down on energy costs. But solar power isn't the only renewable energy option available to urban homesteaders. Wind power, though often associated with large rural wind farms, is also becoming increasingly accessible to city dwellers. While you might not have room for a towering wind turbine in your backyard, smaller vertical-axis wind turbines are perfectly suited to urban environments. These compact systems are designed to work in the more turbulent, unpredictable winds that often sweep through cities, and they can be installed on rooftops or balconies with minimal space requirements. Imagine standing on your rooftop and feeling the wind rush past, knowing that it's not just a fleeting gust but a source of energy you can tap into. Small wind turbines generate electricity as they spin, converting the kinetic energy of the wind into usable power. While they won't replace all of your energy needs, they can provide a supplemental source of electricity, reducing your reliance on the grid and adding another layer of self-sufficiency to your urban homestead. Like solar power, wind energy is clean, renewable, and incredibly satisfying to harness. There's something deeply empowering about knowing that the natural forces of the city, sun and wind, are working for you. Of course, when it comes to renewable energy, it's important to think holistically about how energy is used and conserved in your home. Urban homesteading is about efficiency, and one of the most impactful ways to embrace renewable energy is to reduce your overall energy consumption in the first place. Energy efficiency is a cornerstone of sustainable living, and even small changes in how you use energy can make a significant difference over time. Think of it this way: the less energy you use, the less you need to generate, and the smaller your environmental footprint becomes. This is where home insulation, efficient appliances, and mindful energy habits come into play. Urban homes, especially older buildings, can often be drafty, poorly insulated, or equipped with outdated appliances that guzzle energy. By investing in energy-efficient windows, insulating your home properly, and replacing old appliances with newer, energy-saving models, you can drastically cut down on your energy use. Even something as simple as switching to LED light bulbs, turning off lights when not in use, or installing smart thermostats that regulate your home's temperature can have a profound effect on your energy consumption. Another aspect of renewable energy that often gets overlooked in urban homesteading is the potential for human-powered energy solutions. In a world where so much of our energy comes from external sources, there's something wonderfully empowering about generating energy with your own two hands. Human-powered devices such as hand-crank generators, bicycle-powered charging stations, or even foot-powered appliances offer a way to produce energy directly, using nothing more than your physical effort. These devices might not power your entire home, but they're an excellent way to recharge small devices or power lights during an emergency. Plus, they serve as a tangible reminder of the energy we consume every day, an opportunity to literally feel the effort that goes into powering our modern lives. One of the beautiful things about urban homesteading is that it encourages a mindset of innovation and problem-solving. Renewable energy, while seemingly complicated, can be integrated into even the smallest urban spaces in surprisingly simple ways. It's about making the most of what's available, from the sunlight streaming through your windows to the wind blowing between skyscrapers. And beyond the immediate benefits of lowering your energy bills or reducing your carbon footprint, there's a deeper satisfaction that comes from knowing you're part of the solution, a small but meaningful step toward a more sustainable, resilient future. Living in a city doesn't mean you're cut off from the natural world. On the contrary, urban homesteading is all about finding ways to reconnect with nature, even in the most unlikely places. Harnessing renewable energy is one of the most powerful ways to do that. It's a way to break free from the confines of the traditional energy grid, to become more self-reliant, and to play an active role in protecting the planet for future generations. As you explore the possibilities of renewable energy on your urban homestead, remember that every little bit helps. Whether it's a small solar panel, a portable wind turbine, or a commitment to reducing your overall energy use, these efforts add up. And while you might not be able to completely unplug from the grid, each step you take toward renewable energy brings you closer to a lifestyle that's more in tune with the environment, more efficient, and ultimately more fulfilling. Because at the end of the day, urban homesteading isn't just about growing food or reducing waste, it's about living in harmony with the world around you, one sustainable choice at a time. Chapter 8. Reducing Waste, Recycling, Upcycling, and Zero-Waste Living. In our fast-paced, consumer-driven world, waste has become an inevitable part of daily life. We buy things, we use them, and before long we toss them away without a second thought. But as an urban homesteader, you begin to see things differently. Waste, in its many forms, is not just something to discard, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to rethink how we use resources, how we consume, and how we can reduce the amount we throw away. More than that, it's a chance to transform our waste into something valuable, to close the loop and move closer to a sustainable, zero-waste lifestyle. For many urban homesteaders, the journey toward reducing waste begins with a shift in mindset. It's about seeing waste not as something inevitable but as something that can be minimized, managed, and ultimately eliminated. In a city where landfills are filling up and recycling programs are often underfunded or inefficient, learning how to reduce your waste footprint is both a practical necessity and an act of environmental responsibility. The goal isn't perfection but progress, small, consistent steps toward a more mindful way of living. The first thing you come to realize as an urban homesteader is that much of what we throw away still has value. Kitchen scraps that would normally end up in the trash can be composted and returned to the earth, where they'll enrich the soil and feed your garden. Old furniture, clothes, and household items that seem destined for the dump can be upcycled or repurposed, given a new life with a bit of creativity and elbow grease. Even packaging, plastic, and paper can often be recycled or reused in ways that help you cut down on waste and save money in the process. One of the key principles of reducing waste is understanding that we live in a throwaway culture, one where convenience often takes priority over sustainability. Single-use plastics, disposable products, and fast fashion dominate the consumer landscape, making it all too easy to accumulate waste without even realizing it. But as an urban homesteader, you start to see that every choice you make, no matter how small, has an impact. You begin to prioritize durability over disposability, quality over quantity, and sustainability over convenience. Take food for example. So much of the waste we produce in our homes comes from the kitchen. Leftover food, expired produce, and packaging that piles up by the week. But by approaching your kitchen with a zero-waste mindset, you can start to make changes that drastically reduce the amount of waste you generate. It begins with simple habits, like meal planning and portion control, which help you avoid overbuying and throwing away unused food. Cooking from scratch not only allows you to control what goes into your meals, but it also helps reduce packaging waste, since you're not relying on prepackaged, processed foods. One of the most satisfying ways to reduce kitchen waste is by embracing composting, which we've already explored in an earlier chapter. By diverting your vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and even certain paper products into your compost bin, you're not only reducing the amount of waste that ends up in landfills but also creating rich, nutrient-dense compost that will feed your garden. It's a win-win situation. What would have been trash becomes a valuable resource, closing the loop in a way that benefits both your home and the environment. But reducing waste goes beyond just what happens in the kitchen. As an urban homesteader, you start to see opportunities for waste reduction all around you. Packaging is a major contributor to household waste, and while recycling can help, it's not always the most efficient or effective solution. The key is to minimize the amount of packaging that comes into your home in the first place. That means rethinking the way you shop, opting for bulk purchases when possible, bringing your own reusable bags, jars, and containers to stores, and choosing products that come with minimal or no packaging. It's a small shift, but over time, it can significantly reduce the amount of waste you generate. Upcycling is another powerful tool in the urban homesteader's toolkit for reducing waste. Unlike recycling, which often requires energy-intensive processes to break down materials, upcycling is all about taking something that might be discarded and turning it into something new, functional, or beautiful. It's about getting creative with the resources you already have, whether that's turning an old wooden pallet into a raised garden bed, transforming glass jars into storage containers, or repurposing fabric scraps into reusable cloth napkins. Upcycling is not only a way to reduce waste but also a celebration of resourcefulness and craftsmanship. For many people, upcycling can start with something as simple as furniture. Instead of buying new, consider refurbishing old pieces, sanding, repainting, and giving them a fresh life. Thrift stores, flea markets, and online resale platforms are treasure troves of items waiting to be reimagined. Even items that seem broken or outdated can often be repaired or adapted for a new purpose. There's a deep satisfaction in knowing that something you've made or restored has been saved from the landfill, and in the process, you're creating a home filled with unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that carry their own stories. As you delve deeper into the zero-waste mindset, you'll start to notice that reducing waste is as much about what you don't bring into your home as it is about what you do with what's already there. It's about making intentional choices, thinking long-term, and resisting the urge to buy things you don't truly need. For many urban homesteaders, this means adopting a minimalist approach to consumption, where the focus is on buying less but buying better. It's about investing in high-quality, durable goods that will last for years, rather than cheap, disposable items that wear out or break after a few uses. But reducing waste isn't just about material goods. It's also about rethinking how we use energy, water, and other resources. Conserving energy by unplugging devices when they're not in use, switching to energy-efficient appliances, or simply turning off lights when you leave a room can have a big impact over time. Collecting rainwater for your garden, as we discussed earlier, helps reduce your reliance on city water supplies and ensures that you're using a resource that would otherwise go to waste. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to a larger culture of sustainability, one that recognizes the finite nature of the planet's resources and seeks to protect them for future generations. Perhaps the most rewarding aspect of pursuing a zero-waste lifestyle is the sense of agency it gives you. In a world where it can often feel like the problems are too big and the solutions too distant, reducing your personal waste footprint is something tangible and immediate. You can see the results in your own home, in the fewer trash bags you take to the curb, the compost that enriches your garden, and the upcycled items that add character and purpose to your space. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable world, and that the choices we make in our everyday lives can have a ripple effect far beyond our own walls. For the urban homesteader, reducing waste is about more than just living a greener lifestyle. It's about reconnecting with the values of self-sufficiency, creativity, and mindfulness. It's about learning to see waste not as a burden but as an opportunity, a chance to turn what might have been discarded into something useful, beautiful, or even nourishing. And as you walk the path toward zero-waste living, you'll find that it's not about giving up convenience or making sacrifices. Instead, it's about gaining a deeper appreciation for the resources you have, for the ingenuity required to make the most of them, and for the small but meaningful steps that bring you closer to a more sustainable, fulfilling way of life. In the end, reducing waste is a practice of resilience, one that reminds us that even in the midst of a throwaway culture, we have the power to make thoughtful, intentional choices that align with our values. Whether it's composting kitchen scraps, upcycling an old piece of furniture, or simply choosing to buy less, every action moves us closer to a world where waste is minimized and resources are cherished. And in that world, we all play a part in building a future that's not only sustainable but also rich with possibility. Chapter 9. Community Connections, Bartering, Sharing, and Urban Homestead Networks. The image of the lone homesteader toiling away in isolation is a romantic one, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, relying on no one but your own grit and hard work. But here's the truth: the most successful and fulfilling homesteading experiences don't happen in a vacuum. They happen in communities. No matter where you live or how much land, or lack thereof, you're working with, the power of community is essential to the urban homesteading experience. It's the fuel that keeps the movement growing and the glue that binds individuals together as they pursue self-sufficiency, sustainability, and a way of life that values shared resources over individual consumption. Urban homesteading is, by its very nature, a collaborative endeavor. While you can certainly grow vegetables on your own, raise chickens on your rooftop, or compost in your apartment, there's an undeniable richness that comes from sharing the journey with others. The truth is, we're better together. And in a city where people live in close proximity and resources are often limited, connecting with others who share your values and goals can open up new possibilities you might never have imagined. One of the most powerful aspects of urban homesteading is the way it encourages people to reconnect with their neighbors and their local communities. Cities, for all their vibrancy, can often feel isolating. People live close together, but rarely do they interact beyond the occasional nod in the elevator or passing glance on the street. Urban homesteading, however, offers a way to break down those barriers. It's about more than just growing food or raising animals. It's about building relationships, forming networks of mutual support, and finding ways to share knowledge, skills, and resources in meaningful ways. Bartering is one of the oldest forms of community exchange, and in recent years, it's seen a resurgence among urban homesteaders. Bartering is about trading goods or services without the exchange of money, and it's a system that fits beautifully within the ethos of self-sufficiency. You might not be able to grow everything you need in your small urban space, but you can grow something. Maybe your garden is overflowing with tomatoes, while your neighbor down the street has more eggs than they know what to do with. Bartering allows you to trade what you have an abundance of for something you lack, creating a mutually beneficial system that strengthens both parties. Bartering isn't limited to just food either. It can encompass a wide range of skills, services, and handmade goods. Perhaps you're a skilled carpenter, and your neighbor is an expert at canning and preserving. By trading your skills, you both gain something valuable, without ever needing to pull out your wallet. This kind of exchange fosters a sense of interdependence, where everyone brings something to the table. It's a return to the kind of close-knit community life that many of us long for in the anonymity of the modern city. Beyond bartering, sharing resources is another hallmark of the urban homesteading community. Many urban homesteaders have realized that when it comes to sustainability, collaboration is key. Not everyone has the space or tools to build a full homestead, but by pooling resources, people can achieve far more together than they could alone. Community gardens are a perfect example of this principle in action. In cities across the world, vacant lots and underused public spaces have been transformed into vibrant, thriving community gardens where people come together to grow food, share knowledge, and support one another. These community gardens serve as more than just places to plant vegetables. They're hubs of connection, places where neighbors who might otherwise never have met can come together and build relationships over a shared purpose. The beauty of a community garden is that it creates a space where everyone is invested in the outcome. People of all ages, backgrounds, and skill levels can participate, and everyone has something to offer, whether it's physical labor, gardening expertise, or simply the willingness to learn. But the idea of sharing resources doesn't end with community gardens. Urban homesteaders have found countless other ways to create networks of support and cooperation. Tool libraries, for example, are a fantastic way to reduce waste and save money while ensuring that everyone has access to the equipment they need. Instead of every individual buying their own set of tools, many of which might only get used once or twice, tool libraries allow people to borrow what they need when they need it. This kind of resource sharing not only reduces the environmental impact of overconsumption but also fosters a sense of trust and cooperation within the community. The rise of urban homesteading networks, both online and offline, has also played a crucial role in connecting people who share a passion for sustainability and self-sufficiency. These networks offer a space for people to exchange ideas, ask questions, and learn from one another. Whether it's through social media groups, local workshops, or neighborhood meetups, urban homesteaders have built vibrant communities where knowledge is freely shared and support is always available. These networks are invaluable, especially for those just starting on their homesteading journey. No one knows everything, and the willingness to learn from others is one of the most important qualities an urban homesteader can cultivate. Workshops and skill-sharing events are another powerful way that urban homesteaders connect and build community. Whether it's learning how to preserve food, build a chicken coop, or set up a rainwater harvesting system, these events bring people together to share their skills and knowledge in a hands-on, practical way. In many ways, these gatherings are the heart of the urban homesteading movement. People coming together not just to learn, but to support one another in their efforts to live more sustainably. And it's in these moments of shared learning that real relationships are built, relationships that extend far beyond the practicalities of homesteading and into the realm of true community. There's a kind of quiet revolution happening in cities around the world as more and more people embrace the principles of urban homesteading. It's a revolution based not on protest or defiance, but on cooperation, creativity, and the recognition that we're stronger together than we are alone. At its core, urban homesteading is about reclaiming a sense of agency in a world that often feels disconnected and overwhelming. It's about realizing that, even in the midst of a bustling city, we have the power to make meaningful changes, both in our own lives and in the lives of those around us. And this is where the magic of urban homesteading truly lies, in the relationships that are built, the knowledge that is shared, and the communities that are strengthened. As you grow your own food, reduce your waste, and learn new skills, you'll find that the people you meet along the way become an essential part of your journey. You might start out by trading tomatoes for eggs, but before long you're sharing more than just goods. You're sharing stories, experiences, and a vision for a more sustainable, connected world. At its best, urban homesteading is about building a community that reflects the values of sustainability, resilience, and interdependence. It's about recognizing that we don't have to go it alone, that by working together we can create something far greater than the sum of its parts. In a world that often feels fragmented and disconnected, urban homesteading offers a powerful antidote. The simple act of coming together, sharing what we have, and supporting one another in the pursuit of a better, more sustainable way of life. As you continue your own urban homesteading journey, remember that you're not just growing food or reducing waste, you're building relationships. You're becoming part of a larger movement, one that's rooted in community and driven by the belief that we can all contribute to something greater. And in the process, you'll discover that the most valuable resource of all isn't something you can grow, barter, or upcycle. It's the people around you. Together, we can create resilient, sustainable communities that not only survive in the city but thrive. And that, in the end, is what urban homesteading is all about. Chapter 10. Building Resilience, Preparing for Emergencies in Urban Spaces. Living in a city can often feel like being at the center of it all, where resources, services, and modern conveniences are always within arm's reach. But there's a flip side to urban living, one that can reveal itself in moments of crisis. When disaster strikes, whether it's a natural catastrophe, a power outage, or a disruption in supply chains, cities are often hit the hardest. Dense populations, reliance on external systems, and limited access to resources can make urban environments uniquely vulnerable in emergencies. For the urban homesteader, building resilience isn't just a nice idea, it's an essential practice. It's about preparing for the unexpected, ensuring that you and your family are self-sufficient when the systems we rely on falter. At the heart of resilience is the idea of self-reliance. As an urban homesteader, you've already begun this journey by growing your own food, conserving water, reducing waste, and learning practical skills that contribute to a more sustainable way of living. But resilience goes beyond the everyday practices of homesteading. It's about thinking ahead, anticipating challenges, and creating a plan that allows you to remain self-sufficient even when the comforts of modern life are interrupted. One of the first lessons in building resilience is understanding that emergencies don't always look like the dramatic, apocalyptic scenarios we see in movies. Sometimes they're as simple as a storm knocking out power for a few days, a sudden disruption in transportation systems, or even a shortage of food at the grocery store. In these moments, your ability to adapt and thrive depends on the preparations you've made beforehand. Being prepared doesn't mean living in fear. It means taking control of your situation and having the tools and knowledge to weather any storm. One of the most basic and vital aspects of emergency preparedness is having access to food. In cities where most people rely on grocery stores that operate on a just-in-time inventory system, even a brief disruption in supply chains can lead to empty shelves. As an urban homesteader, you're already ahead of the game. By growing your own vegetables, herbs, and fruits, you're less reliant on external food sources and more capable of sustaining yourself when supply chains break down. But resilience also means thinking about long-term food security. This is where skills like food preservation come into play. Preserving the food you grow is one of the most powerful ways to ensure that you're prepared for any situation. Whether it's canning, dehydrating, fermenting, or freezing, food preservation allows you to store your harvest for months, or even years, so that you always have access to nutritious, homegrown food, even when fresh produce isn't available. Imagine having a pantry stocked with jars of homemade pickles, jams, sauces, and dried fruits, all of which can provide sustenance during a prolonged crisis. These preserved foods not only give you peace of mind, but they also reduce your reliance on external food systems, making you more resilient in the face of uncertainty. Water is another critical resource that can quickly become scarce in an emergency. In urban environments, where clean water is often piped in from distant sources, a disruption in the water supply can have immediate and serious consequences. As an urban homesteader, you can build resilience by ensuring that you have access to safe, drinkable water, even when the municipal system fails. One of the most effective ways to do this is by harvesting and storing rainwater. While rainwater harvesting is typically used for gardening, with the right filtration and purification methods, it can also provide a source of potable water in emergencies. Investing in water filtration systems, both for daily use and in case of emergencies, is another key aspect of preparedness. There are many affordable filtration options available, from simple portable filters to larger systems that can process significant amounts of water. Having a reliable water filtration system on hand means that even if you can't collect rainwater, you can still purify water from other sources, such as nearby rivers, lakes, or streams. This ability to access clean water is essential for maintaining health and well-being in any crisis situation. Energy is another area where resilience becomes critical. In cities, we're often heavily dependent on centralized power grids, and when those grids go down, whether due to natural disasters, technical failures, or deliberate sabotage, life as we know it can grind to a halt. Power outages are more than just inconvenient. They can be dangerous, especially if they last for extended periods. Without electricity, refrigeration systems fail, heating and cooling systems stop working, and communication networks can be disrupted. For the urban homesteader, building energy resilience means thinking about how to power your home and essential devices when the grid is unavailable. Renewable energy systems, such as solar panels or small wind turbines, offer a way to generate power even in the midst of an outage. While you might not be able to power your entire home with a small solar setup, having a system in place that can charge devices, run lights, or power essential appliances can make a world of difference in an emergency. Battery storage is also an important consideration. By investing in battery systems that store energy generated by your solar panels, you can ensure that you have a backup source of power when you need it most. But resilience isn't just about food, water, and energy. It's also about knowledge. The more you know, the more capable you are of adapting to changing circumstances. In an emergency, skills like first aid, basic carpentry, and even simple repairs can be invaluable. These are the kinds of skills that urban homesteaders naturally cultivate as part of their self-sufficient lifestyle. Whether it's knowing how to sew a torn piece of clothing, fix a broken window, or mend a garden fence, having practical skills allows you to solve problems as they arise, without relying on external help. In cities, where services can become overwhelmed during a crisis, self-reliance becomes even more important. But resilience doesn't mean going it alone. In fact, one of the most powerful forms of resilience is community. As we discussed in the previous chapter, building strong relationships with your neighbors and local homesteading networks can provide an invaluable support system during emergencies. When disaster strikes, communities that know and trust one another are better equipped to share resources, knowledge, and skills, making it easier for everyone to get through tough times together. Imagine knowing that you can count on your neighbor for extra water, or that a friend in your local homesteading group can share preserved food or medical supplies. This kind of mutual support creates a safety net that goes beyond individual preparedness. It fosters a sense of collective responsibility and resilience, where the strength of the community becomes a powerful asset in the face of adversity. It's about pooling resources, sharing skills, and working together to ensure that no one is left behind. Preparedness also extends to mental resilience. In times of crisis, staying calm, focused, and adaptable is just as important as having physical supplies. The emotional and psychological toll of an emergency can be overwhelming, especially when systems you've always relied on suddenly fail. But by cultivating a mindset of preparedness and flexibility, you can face these challenges with greater confidence. Urban homesteading, with its focus on self-reliance, problem-solving, and adaptability, naturally fosters this kind of mental resilience. The skills you learn, growing food, fixing things, reducing waste, translate into a greater sense of control and empowerment in difficult situations. As you build resilience in your urban homestead, remember that preparedness is not about fear or paranoia. It's about empowerment. It's about taking steps to ensure that you and your loved ones are safe, comfortable, and able to thrive, even when the unexpected happens. It's about knowing that, no matter what challenges come your way, you have the resources, the skills, and the community to face them head-on. In the end, resilience is a mindset. It's the understanding that we live in a world of uncertainty and that by taking practical steps today, we can face the future with confidence. For the urban homesteader, resilience is woven into every aspect of life, from the food you grow to the energy you generate to the relationships you cultivate. And as you continue to build your urban homestead, you'll find that resilience isn't just something you prepare for, it's something you live every day. It's the quiet assurance that, come what may, you're ready. Conclusion: sustainable living in the future, your role in a greener world. As you stand on the threshold of a new way of living, take a moment to look back at the journey you've embarked on as an urban homesteader. What began with small, simple changes, perhaps a few potted herbs on your windowsill or an experiment with composting, has grown into something far more profound. It's not just about growing vegetables, raising chickens, or reducing your household waste. It's about embracing a lifestyle that is grounded in sustainability, self-reliance, and a deep connection to the world around you. It's about taking responsibility for your impact on the planet and understanding that every small choice you make can ripple outward, affecting not only your own life but the lives of others and the health of the environment. Urban homesteading is more than just a trend or a set of practical skills. It's a philosophy, a mindset that invites you to reconsider what's possible in the city. We often think of urban environments as places where we're disconnected from nature, where concrete and steel dominate, and where resources must be imported from faraway places. But urban homesteading flips that narrative. It shows us that even in the heart of the city, we can cultivate sustainability. We can grow food in tiny spaces, conserve water, reduce waste, and generate our own energy. We can reclaim the skills that our grandparents knew, skills that modern convenience has all but forgotten, and in doing so, we reclaim our agency, our sense of empowerment, and our role as stewards of the earth. This journey towards sustainable urban living is not without its challenges. There will be moments of frustration when your tomatoes refuse to ripen, when a compost bin turns sour, or when you find yourself navigating local ordinances that seem at odds with your homesteading ambitions. But these challenges are part of the process. They're what make the victories all the more rewarding. Every setback is an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to grow. Urban homesteading teaches us resilience, not just in the practical sense but in a deeper, more emotional way. It reminds us that we are capable of solving problems, that we can thrive in the face of adversity, and that, in the end, it's our persistence that will carry us forward. As you continue to cultivate your urban homestead, remember that you are part of a larger movement. Around the world, people in cities are waking up to the idea that sustainability is not just for those who live in the countryside or off the grid. It's for everyone. It's for the person with a rooftop garden in Brooklyn, the apartment dweller in Tokyo who raises bees, the family in Berlin who transforms their backyard into a mini farm. Urban homesteading is a global movement, and with every seed you plant, every rain barrel you fill, and every waste-free habit you adopt, you're contributing to a collective effort to create a more sustainable world. One of the most powerful aspects of urban homesteading is that it reminds us that real change doesn't always have to come from the top down. While government policies and large-scale environmental efforts are essential, the choices we make in our own lives, the food we grow, the energy we conserve, the waste we reduce, can have an equally important impact. In fact, it's often the grassroots movements, the small, everyday actions of individuals, that spark the greatest change. Urban homesteading empowers you to become a part of that change. It's about recognizing that you don't have to wait for someone else to fix the problems of the world. You can start making a difference right now, right where you are. But beyond the environmental benefits, urban homesteading offers something even more personal and profound: a sense of belonging. In a world that can sometimes feel fragmented and disconnected, urban homesteading grounds you. It connects you to the land, to your food, to your community, and to the natural rhythms of life. There's a deep satisfaction in knowing that you can grow your own food, that you can live with less waste, that you can create a home that is resilient and self-sufficient. It's a way of living that fosters mindfulness, creativity, and a sense of purpose. And perhaps most importantly, it brings joy, the simple, unshakable joy of seeing your efforts bear fruit, sometimes quite literally, and knowing that you are contributing to something greater than yourself. Looking toward the future, the need for sustainable living has never been more urgent. Climate change, environmental degradation, and the overconsumption of resources are challenges that we, as a global community, must face head-on. But urban homesteading gives us hope. It shows us that sustainable living is not just possible, it's practical, rewarding, and within reach for all of us. It reminds us that cities, with all their density and diversity, can be at the forefront of the sustainability movement. By transforming our urban spaces into productive, eco-friendly environments, we're not only reducing our own environmental impact, but we're also setting an example for others to follow. Your role in this greener world is both personal and collective. On a personal level, you're making choices that improve your own quality of life. Choices that bring you closer to the natural world, that foster a sense of independence, and that allow you to live in a way that aligns with your values. But on a collective level, you're contributing to a larger vision of what the future could look like. A future where cities are not centers of consumption, but hubs of sustainability. A future where communities come together to share resources, skills, and knowledge, where waste is minimized and where food is grown close to home. A future where we live not in opposition to nature, but in harmony with it. As you continue on this path, remember that urban homesteading is a journey, not a destination. There will always be more to learn, more ways to grow, and more opportunities to deepen your connection to this way of life. But each step you take, whether it's planting a new crop, installing a rainwater harvesting system, or teaching a neighbor how to compost, brings you closer to a life that is not only more sustainable but also more fulfilling. In a world that often feels disconnected and out of balance, urban homesteading offers a way to reconnect, to ourselves, to our communities, and to the earth. It's a way of living that honors the past, embraces the present, and looks toward the future with hope and determination. And it's a way of living that invites each of us to take part in the creation of a greener, more resilient world. So, as you plant that next seed, build that next garden bed, or upcycle that next piece of furniture, know that you are not alone. You are part of a movement of people who believe that the future can be better, more sustainable, and more connected. You are part of a global community of urban homesteaders who are committed to living in harmony with the earth and each other. And in this journey, every small step matters. Every effort you make brings us all closer to the world we want to live in, a world where sustainability isn't just an idea but a way of life.